Hi everyone, welcome to SO 242, Society and the Individual, Week 3. This is your Monday lecture, and we're going to start with just reviewing the assignments for Week 3. So this week you will be reading chapters 5 and 8 in your text New World Reader. There will be some TED Talks videos in Moodle that I want you to review because they will pertain to the forum for this week. And the forum, your initial response is due Thursday at midnight with your 2 peer responses Sunday at midnight. In addition, I want you to check out the website understandingprejudice.org. There's some interesting, articles there, as well as some interesting quizzes to take. So I'd encourage you to go there and explore and see what you can find out. The main paper for this week is called Think Like a Sociologist, which is going to be due Sunday at midnight. So what I want you to do is to choose a source, and a source could be a TV show, a movie, a song, it could be an article from sociology.org, a podcast, and I want you to then read Karen Sternheimer's article, How to Think Like a Sociologist, where she provides 5 very basic tips on how to start thinking like a sociologist. So as you're looking at or listening to that source, I want you to incorporate those tips into that. And then there are questions in the syllabus and in Moodle for you to answer. And you don't have to actually write this paper in an essay format, meaning introduction, your main body, conclusion. If you would like to simply answer the questions and number them in a paper, I will absolutely accept that. Please keep in mind I'm looking for about 2 to 3 written pages, and that this paper should be written using third-person point of view, so no I or no you in the paper. Since you're going to be referring to a source, there has to be at least 1 in-text citation in your paper, which of course means that a works cited page is required. So if you have questions on any of the assignments or specifically about what source you're thinking about or really how to answer the questions, just let me know. The article, How to Think Like a Sociologist, you'll find in Moodle under Week 3. Okay, we're going to move into the definition or the sociology time of the lecture. A shorter lecture this week, and it's really just us defining some terms and thinking about them in kind of a macro level as far as how a society might take these definitions. So we've already kind of used them in some of our previous discussions, but just wanted to get a definition out there so we know that we're all on the same page. So stereotype, okay, oversimplified generalization that kind of relates to certain characteristics or attributes for a group, and it really kind of doesn't have any regard for somebody's individualism. So in your top learning points, there were quite a few of you who referred to the article that talked about how Asians are really good at math. That's a pretty benign stereotype, doesn't necessarily hurt someone. However, it generalizes a whole group of individuals. So some of the things to think about as far as stereotypes is that they are really embedded in our culture. I mean, you can't turn on the TV or listen to the radio or really check out a magazine and not see something really based on a stereotype. So it ends up, for us in sociology, we kind of see it as a stereotype is one way that a group can increase their self-esteem by kind of outing another group. So, for example, a group can compare themselves to somebody else, especially if something is negative. And so it's kind of this in-group, out-group thing. And as these stereotypes get more and more embedded, there's a larger social distance that's created. Again, what this leads to is the next definition, which is prejudice. What happens is that the stereotype might lead to some negative feelings and beliefs, and then there could be some actions that are created as a result, and it's directed as a certain group or a certain group of people. So prejudice actually is derived from the Latin term prejudge, and it's just that you prejudge your interaction based on the group. And a lot of time that prejudice comes from stereotypes or from what the media has told us, not necessarily some of our experiences. Now, of course, our experiences certainly play into it, but in sociology, we tend to see that there are other forces versus our experiences that are causing us to think in a certain way. I think the only thing is that, prejudice can be a result of imitation or conditioning. So in week one, we talked a little bit about, who were your mentors or who did you learn stuff from? A lot of times our family teaches us these certain things. So I know for me, I grew up, my grandmothers, were very prejudiced towards African Americans. And so I grew up hearing this over and over again. And so, that's something for you all to also think about, what is it that you've learned, or what is it, that you feel you've gained out of experience about certain groups. I put a website on here. I think it's an interesting website. It's called ArabFace.us, and it talks about how the media has really stereotyped certain ethnic groups, and therefore a lot of the larger society has very negative feelings. This specific one is about Arabs or Muslims, but they also have one about Asians and Mexicans and African Americans. So I would just encourage you to go and check it out, and you can kind of get a bigger idea of how the media really plays into our feelings. Okay, so stereotypes, prejudice, discrimination would be the next kind of level. And discrimination is the practice or action of really treating somebody different, or really based on their race, religion, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. There are kind of certain levels of discrimination, and we'll get to it in the next slide, but I did just want to talk briefly about racism. That's discrimination, which we know is unequal treatment towards a group of people. But the reason why racism is different is because an individual believes that their race is superior to another race. So just something to kind of think about. Hopefully you're starting to think of some examples in history or movies or something. Like I mentioned, there are certain levels of discrimination, and the first one would be verbal. You could discriminate somebody based on a statement or a derogatory remark. The next level might be avoidance. So somebody might avoid interacting with a certain group. So, people might say, well, I don't care what gay people do, but I don't want them in my backyard. I don't want them in my neighborhood. So there tends to be that larger social distance. The next level is exclusion, which is a form of discrimination. So whether consciously or unconsciously, certain groups are excluded from jobs or housing or education or even social groups based on these negative feelings or this level of discrimination. Getting up on the higher end or the most severe types or levels of discrimination is physical abuse. This could be known as ethno-violence, when there's violent attacks on a certain group. This does happen in the United States, and of course it happens in the world. And so, it's something, that is still happens in our society. And finally, the highest level of discrimination would be extermination. We know that there are genocides and there's been massacres. A great example, or an example, would be World War II with Nazi Germany. So I think the reason why I wanted to talk to all of you about this, I know that you already know these definitions, is to really think about, why does this happen in our society? Why does it happen? And I think if you really sit and try to process it, it kind of can blow your mind. And again, let's relate back to the title of the course, Society is the Individual. Even though a little benign stereotype doesn't necessarily hurt somebody, I think we could see how something could progress if somebody doesn't have education or doesn't gain a lot of experiences, or is only tied to their own small circle or inner group. You could see how something might erupt, or how somebody could end up being part of a hate group because they didn't have anything else to go on just based on those people who are around them and what they believe. So all right, that was all that I want to talk about in the Monday lecture. I look forward to seeing your forum posts and, of course, reading about how you're thinking like a sociologist in your paper. I will be back next Monday to talk a little bit more, and call or email me if you need anything else. Thank you.